I'll just talk a little bit about what's happening in terms of in the office. Just really quick, we are always on the hunt for new interns and folks who want to come and volunteer. There's so many different ways in which you can get involved, and we'd love for you to stop by. We have plenty of things you can do in the community, but we just love having folks, especially constituents, who want to come in and volunteer. So let Gabriella know. Gabriella Collette is here. She's my chief of staff. The other thing is we also have kicked off our Snow Angel program. Every year during the winter we have a Snow Angel volunteer program where we will match in the neighborhood a volunteer with someone who's either a senior or a person with disabilities to help them with their shoveling, essentially. And this is on parts of the roads that the city will not do. It's usually in front of your private walk on a building that you either own or live in. What's very important is if it's a rental property. However, we've had a lot of landlords who wanted us to come in and shovel out in front of that, and technically, as it's an income producing property, we ask that they use that income that they get from that property to pay for the services. But for many of our seniors who don't have access to that income, or for folks who are disabled, we're happy to volunteer and match you with somebody. It's been a huge success helping new neighbors meet some of our longer term residents. And we'll have a volunteer party at the end of this month to kind of have everyone meet, have some hot cocoa, and get ready for the rest of the winter. Just in terms of in the North End, some of the things we got done last year, we finally completed Hanover Street. So that was a good win for our community. We're looking forward to getting more streets paved for the year. So we'd love to hear from you about areas in the North End we can focus on. We bring those during our budget season negotiations with the mayor, so please let us know specifically. We were really excited to finally get the corner at Bova's fixed, and that was a big deal. We wanted to do that in our first term, and we did by the end of the term get that huge gap covered up. So we're very happy with that. The bricks are getting fixed around different areas of Fulton Street, and we're working on making sure that we have a long-term plan. The biggest issue, of course, is the roots of the trees as they grow and move, and you have brick sidewalks that we want to maintain, and coming up with a regular way to get back there, repave, and adjust without killing the trees, right, and without removing the bricks. And historic preservation and character requires a lot of care, let's be honest, and so the city needs to do better, we know, but we are focused on making sure we keep those bricks and keep the trees. We're going to kick off our coffee hours again. During the winter time, they were a pretty popular way of getting folks. I come out to a coffee place here. You are, of course, all invited to bring whatever concerns that you have. And I'm excited to get those started off shortly. We're also doing meet and greets, folks who want to have a smaller specific issue. They don't really want to bring it out to the public. We're willing and happy to come to folks personally or have them meet in the office. So just always know it's off hours after 5 o'clock. We're happy to put on those meetings if you want to especially bring folks with you and concern. And we've talked about all things, busing, schools, snow removal. We've had folks from the North End come in and talk specifically about trash. Those are the best, I think, meetings is when people gather together, organize, and come and talk just face to face. So I really have appreciated this. This community especially has been wonderful about that. So I'd love to continue those conversations. Michael's not here tonight. As you know, he would normally be here. He's in school in his last semester getting his master's degree. So we wish him all the best of luck, but he isn't here tonight. But he is my North End liaison, so you continue to contact Michael Benetti if you need me for anything. I wanted to give you an update. Last year we had a home rule petition for an easement on the John Hancock House. It's very complicated in sound, but what happened is they felt that it was somewhat rushed by the owners, and luckily we had amazing leadership from NEWNC and NEWRA. We told them about the hearing, specifically talking about those easements. They came out, said their piece, said their concerns, and I want to thank you again. I understand you guys are all volunteers, and you're here because you love your neighborhood so much. To have your leaders show up and represent you is wonderful. Ultimately, the home rule petition did get passed out of city council. This is allowing easements for electricity lines to go there so they can upgrade it. They couldn't get a certificate of occupancy until they had electricity. And so we held it up only because, one, they jumped a lot of lines, two, they didn't come before the neighborhood, but ultimately you don't want to just be right. They've learned there's a process. But at the end of the day, that there's income to to be gotten from those easements from Comcast and other companies that are going to use that. And so I've added to the home rule petition, and it passed, that any income the BPDA would get from those easements is to go to the community, the North End specifically, for resiliency. So that was a little tag along that we sent up to the State House to make sure we get the protection for the North End. So in terms of legislative agenda items, so last year I filed, and I intend to file this week, reform from the zoning board of appeal. As you know, the ZBA is the agency in this city that grants exceptions to the rule. For many neighborhoods, they feel that the exceptions have become the rule. There's so many variances going out that people wonder what's the point in zoning. And I've been very clear about why I'm doing this. It's not because I want to stop development. I just want neighborhoods and people to trust growth again. I want them to believe the government is doing its job and vetting and questioning and pushing and moving if there's going to be change. And many people, because of the amount of variances that have happened, don't believe that government is doing that job. Right now, it's by statute, there are 7 seats on the ZBA. By statute, you have to have a real estate agent, you have to have a real estate developer, you have to have someone in labor, you have to have someone, an architect, you have 2 community members, and you have a chair. And I am pushing for a statute that says we need to overhaul all of that. I think there's conflicts of interest. I believe that we should have someone who actually knows the environment, resiliency. How about someone who knows zoning law? There's some folks who should maybe be on there who have historic preservation experience. Again, these are perspectives that are necessary for change, for growth, and for us to trust it. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do. Also, right now there are no term limits, and finally there's no conflict of interest, as in someone can sell a property, can grant variances to a property right now as a ZBA member, then turn around and sell it as a real estate agent. And so that's I think a conflict. And so we need to deal with that. Filing also a parking reform. This is a conversation we wanted to have. It kicked off with discussion about charging for parking passes. I think the question is also needs to be bigger than that, not just how much we're going to charge us, but in terms of metered parking, in terms of overnight parking, in terms of visitor passes, in terms of all of these different things. If we're going to talk parking, we need to talk comprehensively. It'll be a pretty heavy hearing. I expect you guys to show up and to voice your concerns. Parking is something that's a limited resource, and we need to plan accordingly. There are a lot of projects going up with no parking in the buildings because they're right across the street from the T station. But that doesn't account for the fact that that building will be getting Ubers. It doesn't account for the fact that those folks in the buildings will have visitors. And so we need to start to account for that in our planning. And it'll be I think a good positive hearing. It's future focused. In terms of pilot payments, these are payment in lieu of taxes. Our nonprofit organizations like Harvard, and many of our hospitals, but mostly our universities pay these because they're not taxed. And for many people, the resources we provide in housing, in terms of public transportation, in terms of police and safety, they're not compensated appropriately. Many of them agreed to pay a certain amount, and years ago in 2012, and I would say the vast majority of them have never completed their committed amount. And so this is a hearing to say we need to talk about that. We need to talk about the benefits that you claim you're giving to this community. We need to make this real. Honestly, there's already federal law pending that would actually tax them, and they're hedge funds, actually, because in Harvard at least pays more to its hedge fund manager than it does to the city of Boston in pilot fees. On Wednesday, we'll introduce my charter reform call to reform the charter of the city of Boston. Basically, I'm calling a convention, if you will. We have a charter, but it is scattered over many different documents. It's not one full document. What should be in it, how it could be amended, all of those things are going to be on the table. I think if we're going to talk about being a world-class city, we should have a world-class charter. And we need to really assess if how we are going right now is really meeting the needs and the concerns of the residents of Boston. As a city councilor, I can't control the budget. I can only vote it up or down. As a city councilor, none of us actually have any control over who's nominated to the school committee. There are certain things that we would have to change the charter in order to deal with. And I said, before we go piecemeal, why don't we talk about the whole process and see what we need to do. So I'm calling this convention, if you will. It'll be pretty fun, if you will. And so there's other policy things that we're still working on. I'm very happy. I have to again give credit to my now amazing new colleagues on the city council. As you know, there are 8 women on the city council who I've met with them each individually, the new ones, and our new brother in service, Ricardo Arroyo. Just trust that we are probably more gelled and more excited and ready to do so much for the city of Boston. You're in good hands, and it has been an honor to be your city councilor. I am kicking off my next 2 years with a lot of fire and energy to represent you, and thank you so much for hiring me again. Any questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just talk to one of your positions, more goals. So the charter reform, is there anything that you see in the charter that you're more or less like eager to see change?
Yes, the school committee is one thing. And that came up in many of the election debates, this question of whether it should be elected or not. I'm of the opinion right now, I like a hybrid form where there are some people who are appointed, and you can assure that there are some education experts for sure, and then I think there's some people who should be running for office, and that should be a combination of that.
Open to any other, does anyone on the council have questions? I guess like a concern, like one thing that's come up recently has been the trash barrels. Like the trash barrels along the street, sometimes it feels like there's not enough sometimes, especially with all the tourists that come and visit this neighborhood every single day. I just know that there's been just issues with that. I know that Northern Clean Streets is sitting there has been working towards that and to improve that as well. I just don't know if there's something that we could do to maybe get more trash receptacles or improve trash receptacles than the solar compactors that don't compact it.
Right, that is our perennial ask as a community, is to get more. We get a little, we always ask, we get some every year, and I will continue to ask that as part of the budget. We did kick off a couple years ago an initiative to start to clean the streets as a neighborhood, and luckily the city got ahead and also had their schedule adjusted in a way that allowed for our energy to be redirected to other things. But that new schedule, as you know, is pick up on Monday and Thursday, and street cleaning, when we have street cleaning, we don't right now, from, on Tuesday and Friday. And so part of that is making sure, again, the city has to value our neighborhood for the economic engine that it is, right? I mean, we have 2 million people come through here, and to build an infrastructure to handle that, you cannot allocate resources as though we're every other kind of neighborhood that does not have the foot traffic that we do. So it's a perennial ask, and I will continue to do so.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
I'm Robbie Lewis. I live at 357 Commercial Street. On the Greenway, if you go up Hanover Street and you're crossing over, the lights aren't working there, right? Anybody else notice that? Head up Hanover towards Government Center. When you get to the end of Hanover Street and cross into that Greenway section, the lights aren't working.
Okay.
Over, just regular street light stuff.
I'll be walking that tonight, so
Yeah,
I'll see
notice
it.
it. Yeah, because it's sort of, hazardous.
Absolutely.
Dates for the hearings you've mentioned, the parking reform, charter reform convention, and ZBA reform.
So they will be introduced this Wednesday, then they're assigned to a committee, and then I will announce the dates once I know what committee they go to. But I hope to get most of, to be very frank politically, I expect the city to have about as much energy for the Boston City Council and all that we're gonna do until about August, and then I think national politics takes most, if not all, of the energy that a lot of folks have. So I'm trying to get most of this stuff done before the feast season. Any other questions?
Well, I've got another one. Yeah, where the high rises are coming up, is somebody considering the ground structure, hopefully, and that so much of Boston is on fill?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
hope that's going into consideration with all the stuff going on.
Yes, we actually work regularly, I work regularly with the Groundwater Commission and following up the groundwater levels and making sure the pilings stay well underwater. If you don't know, if those water were fill, you have the wood pilings, then we're built on top of that. You need this water table to stay high and for these pilings to stay wet. If they get exposed to oxygen, as in someone builds in incorrectly, they immediately begin to erode and literally houses will go like this. So you can watch online in real time the Groundwater Commission and to see that, so monitoring that. My district, especially East Boston's on fill, the North End's entirely on fill, and Charlestown. So we watch that consistently. Part of that is just also resilient building. If you're going to build on the waterfront, are we now starting to build not just the building to be resilient, which is what we did for a long time. All the mechanicals up on the first floor were good, you know? No, we need to build the building to complement our natural topography, and we also need the building to be able to absorb, or whatever we're building, be able to absorb and move with our waterfront in a natural way. So that, I think, climate ready North End is supposed to be coming out soon. I think so. I'll be talking with Rich McGinnis, and I'll have to give Cheryl and several folks during the bomb cyclone. They came out. That was one of my first intimate meetings with folks in the North End when that happened, the bomb cyclone. And it was great for them to really push for that conversation.
They did a presentation too, here, that you can probably find on northendwaterfront.com.
Okay.
And it goes into like all those details of, but from them. So, and they have a map, like the counselor said, about showing all the work that they're doing in the city. So that could be helpful.
So, no other questions?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Take care.